In 1996, Nintendo released Super Mario 64 as a launch title for their newest console, the Nintendo 64. The game received universal positive praise and gave people a way to play the 3D experiences that the console was setting out to provide. It went down as a masterpiece in video game history. So when the next console, the GameCube, rolled around, Nintendo decided, yeah, we're not gonna do that this time. Instead, we got Luigi's Mansion. While the game was good, the GameCube sales would be a little bit weaker as a result, instead of just having like a 3D Mario at launch to demonstrate the console. And I think that's the moment in time Nintendo decided Luigi would just be a giant joke. I mean, all jokes aside, Luigi's Mansion definitely wasn't the main reason the GameCube wasn't as successful as Nintendo hoped. It was actually Disney's Tarzan Untamed. But in a sense, it's almost weird to me that there's a Mario type of game as a launch title. That sort of just went down in history as, yup, this game sure exists. Despite that, Luigi's Mansion still sold quite well, with a respectable 3.3 million copies, being the 5th best-selling game for the GameCube. It sold more than Pokemon Coliseum and Animal Crossing, which is really impressive. Luigi's Mansion is by no means a failure, but it's the type of Nintendo game that's not talked about all that much in comparison to other launch titles, and I played this game a ton as a kid. It's one that I wanted to get to for a long time. So in the spirit of Halloween, look, I decked this whole thing out. I had fangs, but they don't stick, so I'm not wearing them. We're gonna look at Luigi's Mansion. Let's see what all the hype is about, or lack thereof. Luigi's Mansion was first shown off at Space World 2000, and if you've never heard the term Space World before, think of it like E3, but exclusively Nintendo stuff. In other words, Christmas in July. The Space World trailer showed off the mansion in a fairly early state, and there were 3 ghosts sitting around a table who didn't show up in the actual game. And they said you can't kill a ghost. Everything looks pretty jank in this trailer. You can tell Luigi himself wasn't finished, as his model looks a little jagged, which is fair enough, as a lot of this game's early concepts were done during the Nintendo 64 era, where he looked like a sack of potatoes with legs. Okay, that's cool. But what in the fresh hell is this, Nintendo? You turned Luigi into a pancake with a mustache. Luigi's Mansion would later be shown off at E3 2001 in a much more finished state, and come November 2001, we'd all be playing Luigi's Mansion. Well, I wasn't. I was 2. I had to wait a few years. We boot up the game and we see our knight in shining armor, Mr. Luigi Mario, who won a mansion in a contest. Alright, we gotta talk about how much of an idiot Luigi is for believing that he won a mansion just out of nowhere. And if excuse me, I got a call earlier saying that I want a free cruise. The guy on the phone sounded like he was being held at gunpoint, but I'm sure it's fine. I'll see you guys. Luigi enters the mansion, and yeah, nothing about this looks normal. I smell some shenanigans here. Like, yeah, there's a spirit holding a key, ooh, you spooky. But there's also a door with pulsating spikes on it. I mean, honestly, that scared me more as a kid. It always caught my eye. Luigi gets the key and is able to enter the main room on the 2nd floor. A bunch of ghosts come out to attack him, and we get saved by none other than an old man who's 2 feet tall named Professor Egad. Luigi sucks. This is the first game that Professor Egad would appear in, and from here he would become a mainstay of the extended Mario universe, appearing in some of the Mario and Luigi RPG games, and appearing as a frequent background character in games like Mario Party. Although, fun fact, there's no game where you can play as him. That's gonna cause a butterfly effect leading to the termination of the human race. Just trust me on that. He should be in Smash Brothers. I wanna play him. Also, his name is Elvin. I think it's funny. I also like his voice clips. Professor Egad takes Luigi to his secret laboratory, explaining why the mansion is here. Apparently this mansion appeared out of nowhere fairly recently. Here we get the information that Egad spotted Mario walking into the mansion and, well, not leaving it. And there's our game. And I gotta say, Luigi is really, really heroic here. Not because he's saving his brother, but because, think about it, this could have been the moment in time Luigi was like, oh, Mario got lost? Okay. And leave, and he'd be the star of the Mario franchise. I mean, who else is gonna take the place? Wario or Waluigi? But Luigi, no, he doesn't mind being in the shadow of Mario. He wants to save him, and you gotta respect that. Egad, being the Chad that he is, sends us back to the mansion to fight off the ghosts, with none other than a vacuum and a flashlight. Gee, thanks, you old geezer. Why not just give me a plastic knife at that point? Well, thankfully, this isn't any old vacuum. It's a ghost-sucking vacuum.
Does there exist any store that sells a ghost vacuum?
So Luigi returns back to the mansion and enters the same room that he got spooked in prior, and every kid growing up entered this room and didn't know what to do, and they either turned the game off or had to look it up on GameFAQs.com. Okay, it's not that cryptic what you have to do. You just need to blow out these candles. But when you're 4 years old and can't even tie your shoe, I don't know, you're not gonna think of that. Or maybe I was just a stupid kid. Moving on. Luigi blows out the candles and all these paintings talk. Congrats, Luigi, you just started the Third World War. Ghosts appear, and from here on out, it's pretty clear that ghost busting will be the meat and potatoes of the gameplay. Luigi's Mansion as a structure, however, can best be described as a Metroidvania type of experience, although it's a bit more linear than that. You go to rooms spread out across 4 areas, clear out the hordes of ghosts, get keys to unlock rooms, rinse and repeat. The keys you get are never super confusing what they unlock. Typically only a room or two will be open at a time, and you can always check this out with your Game Boy Horror, and this shows you a full map and what rooms can be unlocked with your keys. I think what makes Luigi's Mansion such an interesting specimen of gaming culture, though, is its fascinating control scheme. After all, this is a launch game and supposed to show people what the console can do, so let's take a look at what we got here. First and foremost, your flashlight is controlled by pressing the B button, which turns it on and off, and can be moved with the C stick. You use this flashlight to stun the ghosts, and from there you hold the R trigger to suck them in with your vacuum, which can send you all over the place as a result. It's pretty tricky and hard to describe. You don't have a lot of control over what happens here, but basically if you hold the control stick opposite of whatever the ghost is trying to fight to, you'll drain their health a lot quicker. It's a really cool thing, honestly, especially with the GameCube controller's vibrations. However, this can be problematic because sometimes ghosts will make objects fly at you, or furniture, or even other ghosts will get in your way, and because you're dead in the middle of trying to capture someone already, you can't do anything to dodge them. This therefore creates a rewarding control scheme that you can only execute well most of the time. The game also has a sidestep mode, which I've never used, but I'm sure someone on the internet swears by this. I've never used it. Pressing the A button this time around doesn't let you jump, but instead it's used to scream for Mario, which gets more intense the less health you have. This has no use, but it's pretty funny, and I'm always tapping A, so I hear it a lot. If you press A when Luigi is by an object, though, he will, yeah. Okay, Luigi, get a room. You're gonna get me demonetized, man. We talked about this. Pressing A, all jokes aside, really just lets you interact with objects. Sometimes you'll just get a lot of a lot of dust. Once you interact with an object, a few things may happen. Sometimes you get a heart. There are some poison mushrooms, which can also spawn for fighting ghosts.
They make you super tiny.
But most of the time, you'll receive some good old money. There are a lot of types of currency in this game. You got your coins, which are less like the Mario coins and more so are like actual coins in real life. There are also dollar bills, gold bars, and gems, with the gems being a lot more situational and hidden.
The money's not to buy anything. What, you think you could buy things with money? What's wrong with you? The money in this game is actually to get the #1 thing that gamers care about. In the 1980s, it's for high score.
So basically the amount of money you collect throughout this game does absolutely nothing until the very end of your playthrough. At the end, depending on how much you collected, you'll receive a ranking of anything ranging from A to H. Yes, H. You guys ever get an H on a test? Ironically enough, I've heard it's really hard to get a rank even that bad, as you pretty much have to avoid getting any cash. So honestly, getting an H might be an achievement in itself.
Dad, I failed my test so badly that I got a 0%.
Son, did you try to fail? I've never seen something so bad.
Yeah?
So while I like the cash in the system, I think is fine, it's kind of weird to go through the entire game without any intrinsic rewards. We'll talk about more ways to get the cash as the video goes on, but speaking purely on the system, it really just depends on the person playing the game whether or not you feel like getting the money is worth it. You can totally go through this game and not think about it at all, or you can be like me and try to get every single cent you can. I like the money. I think the system caters to every playstyle. There's really not any punishment if you don't get it, unless you consider getting a worse JPEG at the end of the game insulting. Which I don't know, that looks pretty sad to live in. In terms of exploration, the mansion is split up into areas, each with its own set of rooms and what are called portrait ghosts. You can't access all of the rooms in an area right away. Sometimes you'll have to backtrack, although these rooms are fairly uncommon. The gameplay loop basically is entering a room, you get all the ghosts, you get a shining key, and you go to the next, rinse and repeat. Along the way, there are occasional optional rooms, and some of them are pretty well hidden. Like this room that you can only access if you click on a little mouse hole with the Game Boy Horror. If you found that as a kid, congratulations. You might be a prodigy. Or this room that Luigi can enter by jumping down a chimney like Santa Claus. While the exploration is memorable, as said earlier, I think this game can live or die depending on if you enjoy catching the ghosts. So let's talk about them. Let's get spooky. Let's talk about the paranormal.
Talk about these cute little cartoon ghosts. Oh, I love these guys. I think they fit a very good middle ground between cute and scary. I don't know how to describe it, but they work so well and fit a perfect tone for what this game is trying to convey. Their half-transparent appearances help to create their vibe perfectly too. You got orange ghosts, they're your Goombas, and throwing a lot at you early on. There are your, I guess, horizontal ghosts who latch onto you. And I kind of hate these ones because they spawn in multiples and usually in small rooms. So if you're sucking up one, the other one's gonna grab you. Get off of me, you wiener dog-looking clown! Then you have these clowns who throw banana peels. Do you guys know that the paranormal likes fruit? Banana specifically? Because they do, it's factual. Then you get the ghosts that are actually pretty scary. There's ghosts that swing down from the top, and this is the closest thing you'll really have to a jump scare in this game. And they have 0 HP, so they might get the first laugh, but then they're instantly dead. Ugh, these ghosts. There's ghosts that slam down the ground, and they have a reach that hits half the room. Another thing that's pretty hard to avoid when you're in the middle of trying to capture another ghost. There are also the purple punchers. They punch you. Okay, I'm sorry, but that's more pink than purple. There are even some special ghosts tied to money as well. Throughout the game, if you interact with the right objects, Luigi can find speedy spirits. These are in predetermined locations that you can only access in the dark. Once they appear, you have to act fast, and if you succeed at capturing them, you get a bunch of money. This may sound cool in concept, but keep in mind, if they get away, they don't respawn until you make a new file or just reset if you had a save nearby. I don't mind the fact that they're hidden. In fact, the concept is quite good and encourages exploration, but sometimes a flashlight in this game has a little quirk where if it flashes too quickly, you're screwed out of getting that money forever because the ghost will just disappear. That happened to me a few times. There are also golden mice. Some can appear randomly, and then there are ones that only appear after interacting with a piece of cheese on the ground. Why is there cheese on the ground? Like I get the people living here, they're ghosts, but I didn't know they were degenerate ghosts. There's a few other normal ghosts too that only appear very situationally, like these skeleton ghosts and these butler ghosts. And interestingly enough, there's a Shy Guy ghost that you have to rip off their masks before you can capture them.
And the Shy Guys are once you realize, hey, it's a Mario enemy. This is a Mario game. But there aren't many Mario characters or Mario enemies present.
Yeah, I mean, you got these Shy Guys, but like no Goombas and no Koopas. It's like, I don't get paid to make these games, but like the opportunity was severely missed to have them be in the game, but name them Boompas and Boopas. I'm the only one who found that funny, wasn't I? Mario is in the game, technically, just not until the end, and the final boss is Mario-related, which we'll talk about later. There are also the Toads in this game, serving the purpose of saving your game whenever you talk to one. But what bothers me about these Toads is that their eyes always follow you wherever you go. Leave me alone, man, you're creeping me out. You aren't listening to me, you're making me scared. I have no choice but to use this, I'm warning you! Toads also mentioned Princess Peach. That's why they're here, because apparently Peach is mad that Mario's gone and sent them to investigate. Alright, Peach, alright, you get kidnapped like 30 times a year, but the one time Mario gets kidnapped, you have a little hissy fit. Oh, that's not very fair, now is it? I have less respect for Peach now, and she's not even in this game. Other than that, there are boos in this game, which like, duh, they're the Mario ghosts, they had to be here, but I don't like them that much here. They're kind of the low point of the entire game. Basically, about maybe a fourth of the way into the adventure, Luigi accidentally activates a trap door that frees up a bunch of boos that then choose to hide throughout the mansion. Okay, cool, but rewind a bit. I don't know if anyone else struggled with this, but when I was a kid, I had no idea how to proceed to the boo section of the room. Basically, to get to that second half, you have to press a button on the wall, which is technically shown with a mirror, so it's not like actually unfair or anything, but I was like 4. It really was not obvious to me. So I literally got stuck here until my dad had to go online with his 2004 internet browser, probably Internet Explorer, print out a 50-page walkthrough on GameFAQs with his work computer. This was pre-YouTube, by the way. Come home from work, I had to study it and read up to the point, only to say, what the f, dude? Okay, I didn't say that, but because I didn't know that word. But I was mad. I was mad. I was really mad, okay? Now, a lot of you may be like, oh, excuse me, Mr. JeffCompass? You forgot to mention King Boo. He's a Mario character.
Wrong.
Sorta. King Boo was actually new to Luigi's Mansion at the time, and we meet him here when we unleash all of the ghosts. All right, now it's time for some lore.
Welcome to Tales of Gaming.
So yes, Luigi's Mansion is the first time that King Boo showed up in a Mario game. The Boo in Super Mario 64 that was recycled like 5 times is not King Boo, but Big Boo. Probably similar to some of the bigger Boos in Super Mario World. Now moving forward into the future, it's 2002.
I guess that's our past, but roll with it. Super Mario Sunshine. This game has a King Boo fight as well. Like you see here, he's obviously called King Boo. I can read. The title of the episode says King Boo down below. And then the whole reason this even relates to Luigi's Mansion video is we have one Pianta up in the attic who complains about the ghosts and how someone should suck them up with a vacuum. Now this might just be a cutesy little Easter egg line, sure, but I think it's fair at this point to assume that in the Super Mario timeline, Professor EGAT had made his mark on the Mushroom Kingdom. To back this claim up, not only are the villagers talking about their potential inventions, EGAD's logo can be found on Mario's tool. And Bowser Jr. says he's received his paintbrush from a strange old man in a white coat. So EGAD canonically sells weapons of destruction to children. Cool. This whole sequence of events have led fans to theorize that Super Mario Sunshine could be a prequel to Luigi's Mansion. Mario pisses off King Boo by, killing him, and in turn he creates this elaborate method to capture Mario by building this mansion. Except, King Boo in the Japanese version of Sunshine is named Basu Teresa, which translates to Boss Boo. So technically, the later iterations were a translation by other teams, and the rest of the stuff here are just cheeky Easter eggs. There's no connections. Well, this was certainly anticlimactic. Unless, no, there's nothing. Back to the game. Back to the boos real quick. I mean, I can pretend like getting off track is a big surprise nowadays in my videos, but let's be real, I do this all the time, and I will do it again. The boos, yeah, they're really frustrating. There are 50 of them throughout the mansion, 15 of which are automatically added to your total from the Boo Losses boss fight in Area 3, which we'll talk about later. Here's how things work. Once you clean out a room of ghosts, a Boo will be hidden in the said room. Using the Boo radar on the top of the Game Boy Horror, you'll be able to see when you are close to where the Boo is hidden. Except sometimes you get a bomb thrown at you and a cutesy little Boo ball. Oh, it's so cute. It's a little Boo ball. It's a little ball with a face. It's so cute. Ha. No, it's not. It pisses me off because what do these fake outs really add to the game? Nothing. It wastes your time. It's all. You just waste your goddamn time. Once the Boo actually spawns, kind of like the other ghosts, you have to try to suck them up. Although the vacuum here doesn't attach to them like the other ghosts, meaning you have to chip away their HP with the vacuum until it hits 0 as they run away. Once you do, you also get a save box, meaning the toads in late game kind of become irrelevant. Man, I feel bad about killing that toad in cold blood now. The Boos early on in this game start with something like 40 HP. These are totally manageable and I have no problem with those. However, the issues with the Boos come in late game, where they can have up to 300 HP. Why is this a problem, you might ask? Well, if a Boo gets away from you, they phase through the walls and then appears on the other side in whatever room or even hall that it went to. This leads to a sequence of events where a Boo will get away and you have to walk through 3 or 4 different rooms, like this room, which has a bunch of crap on the floor that you have to suck up. Then, once you get to the hall that the Boo got stuck in, you chip away like 2 HP because in darkness you suck a lot less health away. Then he goes back to the room and it's like, cool, let me just go back. And then you go through the room, which has the crap on the floor that respawns because why not, right? Let's just clean this all up and rinse and repeat. Sometimes the Boos can even end up being trapped in an area that Luigi cannot access yet. In Area 1, for instance, there's one room that doesn't become available until Area 3. If a Boo flies in there too early, he's gone. And there's a few situations like that in this game. Usually what I do to circumvent this is save my game and then reset it, since the Boo will be back at their original location. This is a fine enough fix, but either way, the base of this game is going to be grinding to a complete halt.
And so for this reason, the Boos are my least favorite thing about Luigi's Mansion. I don't mind them when they're at 40, 50, even 100 HP. If they get away, I mean, that's kind of your fault, and you could usually take care of it in one go-around. But at 300, unless you're like a speedrunner or something, I mean, they're gonna go through the walls. Like, you're not gonna avoid that. And you will be going back and forth. It's not something you can really avoid with skill. So what it comes out to is this just ends up being really, really big padding to make the game a little bit longer.
One thing I like about the Boos is they all have a funny pun they unveil to Luigi once you discover them.
Wanna play Game Boo Advance?
Wherefore my Boomio? I'm Boo-hoo.
Man, come on, Nintendo. Puns are such cheap, lame humor. You guys deserve to get booed for that one. Why aren't you laughing? Why? It was funny. It was funny. Laugh.
But yeah, that's the only saving grace with the Boos. You get to laugh for 1 second and be like, yuck, that was clever. Then you just cry. So it's a really bad trade-off. I guess you could just wait until the end of the game when you have every single room unlocked and then go into each room again individually and get them there. But it sucks when you clean out a room and just want to get them right then and there. At the very least, you don't need every Boo to beat the game. You only need 40 to access the final boss, with the 15 being automatically added to your total from the Boo Losses fight. So really, only 25 Boo fights are even required. If you choose choose to get the last 10 though, you get one of 2 possible gold diamonds in this game, the highest monetary reward. One thing that kinda sucks is that you get the save prompt before you can pick up the diamond. So if you save and then pick up the diamond and then die or your power goes out, then you're locked out of getting this item because it doesn't respawn. Wow.
I mean, that's fairly situational though. Like, what's the chances your power's gonna go out? Crap, I forgot this was a generic Halloween special on YouTube, so there'd be thunder.
One thing worth noting about Luigi's Mansion is that a lot of the games seem to have changed between what we would see at E3 2001 and the actual release of the game a few months later. In the E3 2001 footage demo, the UI was completely different, and this was a few months out from the launch of the game, so it's either a really old build, or the people at Nintendo were able to make goddamn miracles happen in terms of game development. This leads me to something I wanted to talk about. There's an ancient rumor that stemmed from this demo that Luigi's Mansion could have been a completely different game. Something the likes of Pikmin, where Luigi would have 24 in-game hours to save Mario, or else the game ends and Mario just dies. Yeah, but this rumor is actually false. I actually thought this was real too, until I did research for this video. So I assume I just blew a lot of your minds, or maybe not. I might be the only one who even remembers this or thought it was a real thing. Don't bully me. Huge shoutouts to the Gaming Urban Legends wiki. I didn't know this existed. What's next? A Wikipedia for brushing your teeth? How about a Wikipedia for Wikipedia pages? Here they state that this likely stemmed from a commercial for the game which declared that Luigi only had one night to save Mario, or possibly a time limit on the E3 demo that people thought was part of the actual game. And yeah, you know what? I could see how that would be confusing. Looking at the gameplay itself though, it's mostly the same as the retail release. But you know what I can't forget with this version? The vases in the hallway are blue with horizontal stripes. The actual f is this?
It's unplayable.
Luigi's Mansion enemies are like a hierarchy, a social class, if you will. You got your goons, you got your boons, and above them are the portrait ghosts. I love the portrait ghosts. They're so special. Easily one of the best aspects of Luigi's Mansion. These ghosts resemble more of a human being with more HP, and each of them have their specific weakness that you need to exploit. Someone like Biff Atlas the bodybuilder needs to be smacked in the face with a punching bag a few times, and Nana requires Luigi to commit elder abuse. On a first glance, you might think with the portrait ghost, you just enter a room and mess around until you figure it out, but actually most ghosts give you a hint if you take out your Game Boy Horror and analyze their hearts. How this technology works, man, I don't know. You guys just built different. Some of the portrait ghosts even ask you to play a little game with them. Henry and Orville ask you to play hide and seek. At first, you might just think it's a straight up guessing game. I mean, I spent hours on this game as a kid, but if you take out your vacuum, you can see which boxes shake and which ones don't, which is the actual tell. Congrats, Luigi, you just cheated some children. I hope you feel good about yourself, dude. So I love the portrait ghosts because they have so much personality in both design and what they add to the Luigi's Mansion universe. They give so much more depth to this mansion. They make it feel like a realistic place that could have been inhabited. Like, yeah, a mansion would have a sleepy dad or a crying baby. We all have that family member who's obsessed with pool, or know a couple deeply in love with each other, and considering they all have their own mini stories too, this aspect of Luigi's Mansion adds endless amounts of depth to this game that I don't think has ever been replicated in the same way by any game I've played. One of my absolute favorite portrait ghosts is the encounter with Uncle Grimly. Okay, some backstory here. When you try to enter Area 4, the door locks and the power completely goes out, and sort of what feels like an intermission for the game. Now, I've seen a lot of people on the internet who hate this little sequence, as it mainly just requires you to backtrack to older areas to solve the puzzle to turn the electricity back on. But I don't know, I think this is one of my favorite moments of the entire game. All the rooms are dark again, and tons of ghosts come out of hiding in rooms where you previously saved. Nowhere in the game is safe anymore. There are even some specific spooky spirits that only spawn during this sequence. And maybe now that I'm a little older, I can admit that, yeah, they probably did just add this to the game to make it a bit longer, but I could never shake away the feelings this gave me as a kid. It really raised the stakes for me, almost like all my efforts were in vain to save Mario, and in my opinion, is a completely unexpected shift in tone for the entire game, even for one that's supposed to be scary. Now, I'll be honest, I'm not saying this is designed that well. EGAT tells you absolutely nothing about where you're supposed to go. Same guy who can read ghost hearts also just says, screw you, Luigi, figure it out yourself, bro. Now, I actually didn't know about this until recently, but the only clues the game gives you are access when you enter a telephone room in Area 4. Toad tells you to go down to a breaker room. Wait a minute, you're in the mansion that I'm in. How are you calling me? The other phone has Professor EGAT, who for some reason calls you on the phone here, instead of, you know, the Game Boy Horror, which is how you contact him the entire game. From here, he says the ghost named Uncle Grimly might have the key, and then he likes rooms with mirrors.
Yup, that's really helpful. What's next? Aunt Melinda the ghost who likes carpets? What's next? Uncle John, he likes walls? Like, come on, Egad, you can narrow it down a little bit more. Use your big brain.
So yeah, you may as well just enter every room, honestly. I mean, that's what I did as a kid. It turns out that Uncle Grimly is hiding in the wardrobe room, which has one mirror, not mirrors. Egad is a liar. The reason this is one of my favorite fights in the game, though, is the rich lore behind this character. Grimly's biography states that he mainly just likes to be left alone, explaining why he would only come out once total darkness hit the mansion. But what I think is most interesting is how they convey this character's emotions with his own fight, as in Uncle Grimly doesn't put up much of a fight, if any. This ties into him just looking super depressed. I mean, I don't know. I think there's a lot of interpretation for this character. And at first I thought maybe it was just in my head that this fight was easy. Like maybe I was just imagining less pushback than normal. But there's actually another ghost who does the same thing, being Madame Clairvoya. In order to even be able to access the fight against her in the first place, you have to collect 5 of Mario's items that he left throughout the mansion. Once you bring them all to her, she feels like she's given her purpose to Luigi and thus wants to return to her painting again, not putting up much of a fight here as well. The items you give her are Mario's hat and glove, which you can see in a painting at the end of the game, so it doesn't make any sense. This is a continuity error. You also fetch Mario's shoe, that's disgusting, a star, and a letter. Man, they really didn't know what to do for that 5th item, didn't they?
Okay, we need things for that, the Super Mario guy. Okay, he's got a hat. Okay, good start. He's got a glove. He's got the thing that makes him, you know, the boom, 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 boom. Okay. I don't know what to do. Wait, paper, letter. Perfect.
Getting the star is one of the most fascinating parts of the entire game. You enter an observatory where you shoot the moon with a ball of cheese, causing a path to arrive in what appears to be the middle of space. This part of the game leaves such an impression on me, and it really made me question whether or not the story of Luigi's Mansion is even really happening, or if this is just some psychedelic dream Luigi's having. A moment like this has so much weight to it because the whole game is built to be semi-realistic, with the most normal house you've probably ever seen in a game up to this point, at least in the Mario series, but here we are, now walking to a star in space, a moment that feels separate from the rest of the game, almost as if it were an illusion. But also, this is the same franchise that lets you fight a giant turtle over a body of lava, so it's probably not that deep. We're moving on. Getting back to the portrait ghosts, man, I'll say it again, I just love these guys, but some of them in late game make it pretty obvious they started running out of ideas. Like, the game starts off with pretty believable characters you'd see living in a mansion. Then in Area 4, you get Jarvis. Yup, we all have that cousin shaped like a ball sack who lives in a jar. Very relatable. Here's my cousin Jarf.
Someone please save me.
But of course, this doesn't have to be realistic anyways. They're ghosts, it's a video game, there's some breathing room here, I get that. Portrait ghosts are a big part of what makes Luigi's Mansion such a classic worth revisiting. Like, everyone remembers Melody. She occupies a room full of instruments. After Luigi humps all the instruments, she plays a little song from you from the past Mario games that you have to guess before you fight her. Because I was young when I played this game, I had no idea what any of the songs were, so this was just a lot of trial and error for me, but it's still a neat touch regardless. Then there's the ghost Sue P, which for some reason has a room with furniture stapled to the ceiling upside down. Looks like some kind of James Rolfe room.
I gotta speak to my contractor again.
To activate the fight, you have to spray her with water, because she's a bedwetter in her name. Like, get it? It's Soupy. Soupy? That's honestly disgusting. Every time you capture a portrait ghost, they return as, well, a portrait to Professor Egad's gallery. I love the gallery a lot. There's obviously not that much to do here, you just look at the paintings, but it has a song that's so different from the sound design of the rest of the game, and it just feels so cozy and safe. Depending on how much HP Luigi has when defeating a portrait ghost, you can get a different frame, being gold, silver, or bronze. So I've been playing a lot of Xenoblade Chronicles 3 recently. It's a really good game that I might never beat because I have no time, but getting to my point, if there's a unique enemy in this game, once you win the fight, a tiny gravestone will appear. This will let you refight the enemy at any point you want to. In my opinion, this probably should have been integrated here too, and it actually was in the 3DS remake. Now, getting the gold frames on the portrait ghost is absolutely nothing, so you might be asking, why am I complaining?
Because that's what I always do. Welcome to the channel.
Also, depending on how well you fight the portrait ghost, you can also get a bigger amount of pearls. Another way you can rack up money in this game. If you get 90% of the ghost's health in one suction, then you get a super big pearl. Honestly, getting 90% of a portrait ghost's health is not that easy. As I stated earlier, there can be a lot of stuff that gets in your way, and sometimes you just get cut loose for what feels like no reason. So it's really irritating that money can just outright be locked. Thankfully, to get the A rank, you can afford to miss a decent chunk of money, so it's whatever. Back to my great hierarchy chart. Above the portrait ghosts are more important portrait ghosts. There are 4 of these, each one serving to close each area. And these fights are a little bit more in line with actual Mario boss fights. You can't get a full suction on them usually, meaning you'll likely have to do it in at at least 3 cycles. The first fight is against Chauncey the Spoiled Baby. This fight begins after Luigi bops him in the face with a ball, which sounds bad, okay, but context matters. He started it. The fight's fine though. He throws horsies and balls at you. Typical boss stuff, I think. The Area 2 fight takes us to Bogmire. I don't know what to call this guy. I think this fight's kind of forgettable, personally. I like the rooms before this fight more than anything. Firstly, you face off against Spooky the Doc. And here I thought Spooky was the name of the boss fight from Pac-Man World 2. Namco, you're getting souped, you know that? You then move to a graveyard fighting against a bunch of skeleton ghosts, and then the actual Bogmire fight takes place, which I think works best because of the tension these prior rooms built up. Here you just suck up smaller ghosts into balls, shoot them at Bogmire, and then it gives Luigi the ability to be able to suck Bogmire.
Okay, I am really starting to hate the word suck, because it just sounds wrong. I looked up some synonyms. Let's use the word inhale from here on out. Yeah, that's not that much better. Okay, how about blow?
I kind of dislike Bogmire on the principle that actually aiming these balls at him really sucks. It's hard to aim. All my shots go past him. And to go back to the part where you shoot the moon, I had the same problem. I really think some sort of lock-on system would have gone a long way here, even if it only would have been used infrequently. But other than that, it's a pretty good fight, albeit probably one of the more forgettable ones in the entire game. The third fight is against Bulossus. Now look, I get some people like this fight. I personally hate it. It starts off on a good note. Dragging Bulossus to the tip of the unicorn crown breaks them into a bunch of smaller boos, which you then suck up individually after freezing them. After a bit of time, they'll combine back into a bigger boo, rinse and repeat. The problem is, once you get to like 2 or 3 boos remaining, they move really fast, and it's pretty difficult to even get the individual ones again, meaning you'll just be spraying the air with ice on and off until they coincidentally meet your path again.
And so I've mentioned this throughout the video, like you're spraying soupy with water, you're using some ice. How on earth are we doing this? Well, the answer is Pokemon.
Yup, Luigi's Mansion has elements you could spray with the L trigger. Fire, water, and ice. Throughout the game, Luigi will unlock the elemental metals for the ability to use each of these. The first one you'll unlock is the fire element. Typically, this will be used for lighting candles to activate an event, but you can also use it to start the fight against the butler ghost too. Did anyone else shit their pants by this guy's screams as a kid, or was that just me? Can I get a raise of hands? You can also use the fire on fake doors and it'll burn them. Honestly, a pretty good reason to have it. But you can also figure it out by trying to vacuum a door and seeing if it shakes or not. Plus, like, wouldn't this just burn the whole mansion down? Luigi already has elder and child abuse charges. I guess, let's just add fucking arson charges on there as well. He's already getting sued. Well, thankfully, the fire seems to not affect the mansion too much anyways, as there's some doors that are already on fire throughout the entire game. I don't know how that works. The next element is water, which might be the most useful element of the 3. You can put out fires, of course, but more importantly, Luigi can take up botany. If you care about the money in this game, spraying plants with water is a really good way to earn it, oftentimes leading to gems. One plant located where you fight the reincarnation of the Pac-Man World 2 boss doesn't seem to do anything at first, but if you go back and spray it after completing each area, by area 4, it'll give you the second of 2 gold diamonds, a really, really neat reward. And there are a ton of other plants littered throughout the game. I think it's a really nice way to encourage the player to continue to care about their surroundings here, especially being midway through the game. The final element of the 3 is the ice element. This really isn't used that often. You use it to start the fight against Aunt Petunia by ruining her bath, and mainly for when you need to freeze some water for whatever reason, like this radioactive waste in the pipe room. Whose house has a room like this? The elements are needed to take down elemental ghosts too. Sometimes, for instance, a ghost will spawn with a fire inside of them, and you'll need water. Now, I like this concept of elements in Luigi's Mansion. The problem is you're going to end up backtracking a lot to get them. Luigi can only hold 1 element at a time, and there's really not enough locations where you can actually refresh it. Like, you might have to walk all the way back to area 2 sometimes. Because of this, in late game, what often happens is you'll enter a room, see you need an element, cry, and subsequently backtrack, and this can happen a few times in a row with differing elements. For instance, right after the fight with Aunt Petunia who needed ice, there's a room where you need to light candles. So let me go all the way back and get a fire, and it's literally like 2 or 3 minutes to go all the way back just to get a fire element. This could have easily been fixed by just letting Luigi have access to all 3 at once. Recharges could have still been fair game in my opinion, but what it should have been was like the Zelda games had, as in you could open the menu and choose any of the 3. Now, backtracking isn't always a pain. If you find a game with a mirror and interact with the Game Boy or Luigi gets transported back to the main area. Let me just take what the kids call a selfie. Oh! While this is sorta useful, not every room has mirrors, and also transporting to the front of the mansion really doesn't help you with that much, since you then have to backtrack to where you were after getting whatever you needed regardless. So it makes like a 2-minute trip more like a 1-minute 45-second trip, you know? This is kind of the same conundrum the developers likely had when designing the booze. They could have fixed these two things, and then they would just have a 2-hour game. These two things, bar none, are the biggest issue with Luigi's Mansion. Listen, it's a good game, but it's so goddamn padded that I just can't say it's great. That's one of those things I just had his stomach once I grew up. Because as a kid, you aren't even thinking about padding or backtracking, you're just playing a video game. For example, Chapter 7 in Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door has an entire half-hour journey where you have to revisit all the worlds. I thought this was really cool when I was 6. I was 6. It's one of those things when you gotta realize, even if the game is good, there's a blatant flaw sitting here that we just can't ignore. I still have a good time with this game, but the magic disappears from this game quite a bit, especially now that I've analyzed video games for years now. In fact, I go so far to say that this game nowadays probably wouldn't have even gotten a physical release. It would have just been released as a $20 digital game. Yes, I know this was disproven in 2018. We'll get to it when we get to it. However, there's one aspect of Luigi's Mansion that I felt as a kid and still feel strongly about to this day. The world and graphics this game presents are just phenomenal. The environments are so goddamn fascinating to me, and I can tell you that magic never went away from me and probably never will. This is really hard to describe because I don't even feel like I'm talking about the game in a way. I'm talking about an emotion that this game provokes. So bear with me, I'm gonna do my best. I mean, I've already talked about it here or there throughout this video anyways. The quasi-realistic feel this game presents just gives it a charm and tone that just wasn't seen in a Mario or even Nintendo game up until then. Future Luigi's Mansion games could come close to this at points, but never really recaptured it in the same way. Looking at the Ghosts in Dark Moon or 3, they are more like Minion movies. The whole game feels like a cartoon. There's no element of horror at all, to be completely honest with you. But Luigi's Mansion 1 finds such a good line between spooky and cartoony. It's still dramatic, there are still the funny moments, but it's never so cartoony that you feel disillusioned with the mansion or lose touch with the chills running down your spine. The game always keeps you on your toes, whether the power goes out or the occasional jump scare or stuff like the psychopathic butler. By and large, you really do feel the stakes here as Luigi. I think this is because the mansion is so realistic and grounded. The player can associate it with the real world that they live in, because as I said earlier, the rooms in Luigi's Mansion are rooms you might walk into in an actual house, and the ghosts are based on people you might actually know. Besides Jarvis. So I might be repeating myself a bit through this video, but it's hard not to. It's just the identity that Luigi's Mansion has. It means that the flaws that this game does have are sort of forgivable, because at least in my opinion, it's something so unique that even in 2022, this game still has a certain charm to it. Like, I love moments like this, where you can see the toad you met on the balcony from Lydia's room, and then once you get to the graveyard, you see that same area if you look back. It reminds you that this is one cohesive world, something Super Mario Sunshine would later take inspiration from. The sound and music direction work so well for what this game is as well. Now, there's only one main song when you're exploring the mansion, but man, that song is good and such an earworm. I mean, that's probably half the reason people even remember this game, let's be honest. And this is countered so well by the calming songs that play when you're with EGAT or at his gallery. So it makes everything else seem so much scarier by comparison. There are other songs, sure, like the boss fights and little jingles here or there, but nothing as memorable as the main theme. The sound effects help fit you into the world too. The vacuum is basically as loud as the same feedback you're giving the trigger button, and when you check an object, you get a little sound. I don't know what to call it. And Luigi as a character himself complements this too. Whether he's whistling the main theme in the lighter rooms or screaming out for his brother when his HP gets low, he feels like an integral part of the player's journey. One thing you can do is take out the Game Boy Horror to investigate a given room. This has other functions like the map and telling you your money count, but you can also use it to interact with any objects. This is of course how you check the ghost hearts, but Luigi can also check, say, a random poster on the wall and get a little blurb of what Luigi says. It's a picture, but I wouldn't call it art. Luigi predicted NFTs. Now, a lot of these lines of dialogue can be fairly cookie cutter and maybe a bit repetitive, but just the fact that it exists at all, in my opinion, provides a lot of depth to the entire game. Like, you could be a snob and say, who cares? I know the responses are kind of similar. I am beyond this. Or you could take it for what it is and imagine Luigi's just a real guy, you know, giving his commentary with you as the adventure continues. Luigi's Mansion is what you choose to make of it. The money system is a perfect example of that too. I mean, sure, you can view the money as worthless, or you can view it as a high score and try to max out your painting portraits on each playthrough. route. You can go for the gold paintings, or if you just want to breeze through the game and get to the end, I mean, you can focus that. And ultimately, you can choose to view this game as a tech demo out to have something on the GameCube, or you can see it in the lens of this game as a genuine, unique experience that stands on its own in a lot of ways, even into the 2020s. But nostalgia is not going to help us run from some of the bigger flaws. The biggest problem with this game, besides the backtracking, is just while this game is really good and memorable, it's really short. And at the end of the day, while it's an enjoyable time, when nearly a third of it is dedicated to chasing boos and running down the stair to get like a fire element, I can see why some people don't like this game. I think it's even fair to say that this game, being as good as I think it is, can very well be rooted in nostalgia, because that feeling I talk about, well, I truly mean it. It's just that, a feeling, and one that if someone picked up the controller and played this game for the first time nowadays, they might not share it. So did nostalgia cloud our judgment for whether or not Luigi's Mansion is a good game? I think it has to an extent. It's a good but underdeveloped game, but to those who enjoy it and see the beauty in it, it's something special, which is why it's so easy to love it to the amount many do. I feel like I'm on the opposite of Pac-Man World 2. When I reviewed that game a few months ago and didn't like it that much, it is kind of important to note that while I did play it a little bit as a kid, I didn't play it all that much and I never beat it. If someone had those sentiments towards Luigi Mansion that I had towards Pac-Man World 2, which was I thought the game was really overrated, if I removed my bias towards Luigi's Mansion, I think it'd be fair, and I'm gonna have to try to understand those opinions as well.
Alright, well, I've said pretty much everything I think I can say about a 3-hour game, so let's go save Mario, because we need to sell some GameCubes desperately.
Right before King Boo, you have a mini-boss type of entourage against Vincent Van Gogh, who we find out has been painting that ghost throughout this entire adventure. Wait, paint creates the ghosts. King Boo in Mario Sunshine, it turns into goo. Therefore, he was made by a paintbrush. He was made by Vincent Van Gogh. Luigi's Mansion and Super Mario Sunshine are connected. Boom! There you go. Once we get to the final room, it turns out that King Boo has taken the body of Bowser, who can take his head off now. Never mind about that stupid toad. I think this is the scariest thing in the entire game. Ugh. King Boo has a whopping 500 HP, and if you don't know what you're doing, this fight is actually pretty hard, to be honest. I died a few times, and in part that's because I've seen everyone else say it's easy, but I don't know, man. I've struggled quite a bit. I mean, there's no health in this fight, and it can be a little long, so if you do the 50th Boo right before this and get that gem I, made fun of earlier, save your game. Probably will die if it's your first time. In the end, King Boo's defeated, and Luigi gets Mario back. Everyone yucks it up, and that's the game. After the credits, you do get an option to do a New Game Plus mode called Hidden Mansion, making your vacuum more powerful, but your HP drains quicker. Interestingly though, the PAL version is everything mirrored and is a lot more modified, making it almost a second spin on the same mansion. But saying this game mirrored is really cursed. My eyes are on fire. I mean, that's the entire game. You can see what I mean when I said this game was short. I guess you can watch a Pikmin trailer at 144p. Wait a minute, I'm JeffCompass. I'm the Pikmin guy, okay? I'm always looking for more Pikmin content. I reviewed all the games already, so I'm really struggling to think of something new to review, but here, a Pikmin. Okay, meet the quote-unquote Pikmin. Oh, so they're not really Pikmin? This trailer is super interesting to me because there's a lot of elements here that we wouldn't see in the final version of the game. Like, there aren't any red Bulborbs in the distant spring. There's only the Bulbears. And if I saw that many Honeywisps, I think I'd have a mental breakdown. Considering this game was like 2 months out from the trailer, I again question the bills Nintendo uses for these.
Alright, well that's the video. Thank you for watching. What? No, I'm not going to review the 3DS game. Just because I looked at the Game Boy Advance games for Pac-Man World 1 and World 2, we're not going to be setting that dangerous precedent. The video's over. Go! Fine.
Well, I can't talk about this version to the extent I might like anyways, as I don't own a 3DS capture card, and it just so happens I end up having to talk about DS games pretty much every episode of this show somehow. Luigi's Mansion would make its way to the 3DS console in 2018. Pretty darn late into the handheld's lifespan, wouldn't you say? Fun fact that I'm sure you've heard before, but whatever, Luigi's Mansion on the GameCube was conceived to be visible in 3D, as this was a feature considered for the whole console fairly early on. Nintendo axed the idea when they realized 3D TVs had not taken up a significant share of the market. They still haven't, and I've never met anyone who's owned one. The remake does add a decent bit and changes up quite a lot. For one, the PAL Hidden Mansion I talked about earlier is now in every version of the game, and it changes up a lot of the locations of the Speedy Spirits and Mario's items, and even switches up some of the portrait ghosts that you have to beat. There's a boss rush timed trial mode here, and there's also like an achievement system now, because Nintendo consoles don't have achievements like normal consoles do, so every game has to just make their own. It's a pretty easy thing to throw in a remake to add some replay value. Pikmin 3 Deluxe did this as well. There are 5 subsets of achievements achievements, and upon completing all the achievements in one of the clusters, you get a little ghost added to your stand you can view in the gallery. There's some pretty hard achievements in here, like, yeah, the beginner ones are something a baby will do in their casual playthrough, but there's also achievements like beating the game without ever going under 80 HP, and that's something I don't think I've ever done in one of my original playthroughs. These add quite a bit to the whole idea I mentioned that Luigi's Mansion is a game meant to be replayed over and over, and gives a lot more meaning to the money in this game when there are achievements you get by collecting money on repeat playthroughs. There's also multiplayer now. A second player can join, entering as a green blob, Luigi, who comes from the future, which is Luigi's Mansion 3, which came out a year later. You see what they did there? It's clever. I only recommend this mode if you like playing your games at 6 frames per second, which leads me to my next question.
Why in the holy mother of all that good and bad was this on the Nintendo 3DS? Probably the weakest thing they could have put it on. Phones had more power at the time, like unironically. Why wasn't it on the Switch?
Like, yes, I get the argument for it. Okay, I know the original was meant to be in 3D. That's cool, but the 3DS was not only extremely underpowered in 2018, it also pretty much turns this remake into a demake. What's the point? Graphically, while some models are more refined and the environments are definitely improved, who even cares? The console has a resolution output of 240p! Like, it almost looks worse because of that. Maybe I'm unnecessarily mad about this, whatever, but Luigi's Mansion is one of my favorite games of all time. I would have killed for an HD port. Like, GameCube remakes are treated like an actual joke at Nintendo. Miyamoto gets on stage every night. It's part of his routine comedy bit. That's how much it's funny to them. Like, we get Zelda HD ports. Cool. They're on the Wii U. No one bought that console. Super Mario Sunshine gets, like, destroyed in 3D All-Stars. And what else? Oh, there's nothing. Oh, but we get NES games up the goddamn kazoo. Fuck, man. And it's not just the fact that the graphics can't be appreciated even if they're better. It's also just like, this game doesn't control that well. It's not unworkable, but if you don't have a 3DS model with a second stick, you have to use emotion controls to even play this game, which isn't the end of the world. I know some people like gyro, and there's even control options that make it similar to Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon on the 3DS, but overall, this game simply was just not meant to be on this console. It just wasn't. The 3DS should have been long gone by then. Plus, if you're releasing Luigi's Mansion 3 on the Switch the next year, why would you promote the game by releasing the original on a handheld, but no one would play it in a few months anyways? What the hell happens in Nintendo's headquarters, man? Something crazy's going on there.
And here's the thing, Luigi's Mansion 3DS is a great game, a good remake on a wrong console, and that kills the entire thing, at least for me, because I'd rather just play it on my TV with a controller. And since Nintendo games don't get remade more than once, this is Luigi's Mansion's eternal life forever, just being stuck on a 3DS. Like, they're not gonna remake it for the Switch now because Nintendo never does that. No, that's why we have Super Mario 64 DS and nothing else. And they do the same for Ocarina of Time 3D, Majora's Mask 3D.
Luigi's Mansion, at the very least, has gotten so much love since the original release in 2001. It was a stage in Super Smash Bros. Brawl. There were tons of adaptations and spin-offs in sports games, and even a mini-game in Nintendo Land that's regarded as one of the best uses of the gamepad on the entire console. It birthed classic Mario characters that would end up being series mainstays such as Egad and King Boo, and yeah, just them, but that's still a big deal. Not only that, it gave Luigi a character. Sure, he was always kind of just the awkward guy, but it defined him more as a scaredy cat and really fleshed out his personality. And even seeing the Mario movie trailer, we can see elements of this there. Luigi's Mansion undeniably left an impact on the entire Mario franchise.
And yeah, that's about it. I mean, Luigi's Mansion would go on to spawn a sequel in 2013, Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon. But to be honest, I don't like that game very much, so we're just gonna call it here.
What?
Ah.
Yes, I'm a ghost. I'm also a real person and YouTuber, so this bit might not make any sense. But how dare you say Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon is a bad game?
I didn't say it was bad, I just don't like it.
Ah, okay.
But I also do think it's bad.
That's it. I'm subjecting you to appear on my Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon review this Halloween and explain yourself.
Listen, you clown, what are you gonna do to me? You're a cartoon ghost.
If you don't, you'll have to play Super Monkey Ball Adventure for the rest of your life.
You win. I'll get the game, but you're editing the video.
One thing I like about the boos is they all have a funny fun.